Alright everyone, welcome back to the stream. I'm so sorry about what happened on Monday. Apparently the algorithm dinged my stream for copyright infringement and ended the stream early, but I didn't violate copyright, and so they graciously allowed me to have my stream back up. So I guess before we get started today, I'm just going to say I don't own any of the videos or articles that we will be covering tonight. Okay? From now on, I'm going to, well, I guess I already have been crediting the people I feature here with adding the link down below, but I'll be extra vigilant to credit everyone and make sure that that does not happen again. And also no more music on this stream. Because, okay, first it was Chopin of all thing, and I'm starting to suspect the reason I got dinged for copyright was one of the interviews for Mobius had music in the background. So maybe that's what triggered the bots? I don't know. They never told me what exactly it was, which is annoying. But now that we got all that taken care of, I asked this week I decided the theme is going to be Atlantean because it has been raining over here for pretty much the whole week. Today's the first sunny day. So I thought, you know what, let's pick an Atlantean. And you guys voted, and today we are doing Kull the Conqueror, or Kull of Atlantis. Whichever way you want to call him. He answers by both names. So, like normal, I'm gonna just exit out of that real quick. Like normal, we're going to cover some of the Wikipedia stuff first before we head into the videos. And, before we continue, I mentioned back in my Solomon Kane character spotlight that I wish we could find a way to get some of the letters between H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, because I feel like they would be very interesting. And it turns out there is a whole book that compiles all of the letters between the two. It's called Means to Freedom. They have a little website here, and yeah, it's available on Amazon and all other platforms, so you can go get yourself a copy. Alright. Though we might be looking up a letter later in the stream, because I do have one burning question. And once we get there, I'll explain it. But anyways. Alright. So, Kull of Atlantis. King Kull redirects here. For any other characters seeing King Kull, DC Comics. Okay, so that's a different Kull. Alright, for the collection of short stories, see Kull, the short story collection. And the Del Rey does have a Kull the Conqueror compilation too. Alright. Kull of Atlantis, or Kull the Conqueror, is a fictional character created by writer Robert E. Howard. The character was more introspective than Howard's subsequent creation, Conan the Barbarian, whose first appearance was in a rewrite of a rejected Kull story. Huh. Now, I knew that Kull was basically the prototype of Conan, but I didn't know that Conan was literally Kull, and then they had to change it for whatever reason. So Conan is also kind of an oops baby creation. Just like the Shadow. Alright, his first published appearance was in The Shadow Kingdom in Weird Tales, August of 1929. Kull was portrayed in the 1997 film Kull the Conqueror by actor Kevin Sorbo. I saw only clips of that movie, and it looks kind of corny, and the CGI looks kind of bad, but we'll get there when we get there. Okay. Species human, gender male, occupation, current, well, past, king, former soldier, gladiator, outlaw, pirate, slave. So yeah, he's basically Conan. Affiliations, Brule 2 and Canu, and enemies, Canu, and enemies Thulsa Doom. Yes, Thulsa Doom is not a Conan villain. He's a Kull villain. And in fact, he's supposed to look like that. Yeah, Kull was actually supposed to look like a Lich King. So that's why I had that little joke in my Conan the Barbarian review of my boyfriend and I were so disappointed that Kull didn't look like he did in the comics, and it's like, this is what he's supposed to look like. He's not supposed to have flesh. All right. Weapon, sword, axe, origin, Atlantis, nationality, Atlantean. Yeah, I believe in the Conan universe, the Atlanteans were human. They're not fish people, they're human. And they did at one point conquer the entire Earth, but then Atlantis collapsed into the sea, and everyone had to either scramble on the surface world or try to find a way to get back to Atlantis. That's what I'm remembering. Alright, personality and character. Kull is similar to Conan in many ways. He's a fierce warrior, ruthless and courageous on the battlefield, but not tyrannical or cruel. He has a strong sense of chivalry and virtue. Unlike Conan, Kull is philosophical and brooding. He agonizes over decisions that affect the lives of those around him, always looking for the most notable actions to take. He is uncomfortable with kingship and prefers the life of a general. Alright, so remember that question I mentioned earlier? So my big question is, why did Robert E. Howard stop making Kull stories for Conan? Especially since now we know that Conan was an oops baby. So it's like, if Kull was like reasonably popular, why stop making Kull stories in favor of Conan? Because Solomon Kane also got booted to the side once Conan got popular. So it's like, the big question for me is why? And if there was any specific reason, was it a publishing thing, or was Howard just tired of the character and didn't want to do it anymore? We might get answers. All right, fictional character bibliography. Kull was born in pre-cataclysmic Atlantis, circa 100,000 BC, depicted as inhabited at the time by barbarian tribes. East of Atlantis lay the ancient continent of Thuria, of which the northwest portion is divided among several civilized kingdoms. The most powerful among these was Volscia. Others include Camoria, Grondar, Camilla, Thrul, and Verulia. Note that the word Thuria never appears in any of the Kull stories. Howard coined the term while tying Kull's world to Conan's in the 1936 essay, The Hyborian Age. Okay. Yeah, because Conan was supposed to be, like, a descendant of Kull, kind of, sort of. Kull was born into a tribe settled in the Tiger Valley of Atlantis. Both the valley and tribe were destroyed by a flood while Kull was still a toddler, leaving the young Kull to live as a feral child for many years. Kull was captured by the Sea Mountain tribe and eventually adopted by them. In Exile of Atlantis, an adolescent Kull grants a woman a quick death so that she may not be burned to death by a mob. For the selfless act, Kull is exiled from Atlantis. I wonder what she did. Or why they were trying to kill her is probably the more appropriate question to ask there. Alright, slave, pirate, outlaw, gladiator. Kull attempted to reach Thuria, but was instead captured by Lemurian pirates. He spent a couple of years as a galley slave before regaining his freedom during a mutiny. He tried the life of a pirate between his late adolescence and his early 20s. His fighting skills and courage allowed him to become captain of his own ship. Soon Kull gained a fearsome reputation for himself in the seas surrounding Atlantis and Thuria. Kull lost his ship and crew in a naval battle off the coast of Valusia, but once again survived. He settled in Valusia as an outlaw. However, his criminal career proved to be short-lived, as he was soon captured by the Valusians and imprisoned in a dungeon. His captors offered him a choice: execution or service as a gladiator. He chose the latter. After proving to be an effective combatant and gaining fame in the arenas of the capital, a number of admirers helped him regain his freedom. So basically he got famous, and then he got some simps and fans to help bust him out of there. Kull never left Valusia or returned to the life of an outlaw. Instead, he joined the royal army as a mercenary, pursuing elevation through the ranks. In The Curse of the Golden Skull, Kull, approaching his 30s, is recruited by King Borna of Valusia with a mission against the ambitious sorcerer Rothath of Lemuria. Kull proved to be an effective assassin. Borna promoted Kull in the general command of his mercenary forces. Borna himself, however, had gained a reputation for his cruelty and despotism. There was discontent with Borna's rule among the nobility, leading eventually to a civil war. The mercenaries proved more loyal to Kull than any other leader, allowing him to become the leader of their revolt. Alright. King of Valusia. Kull killed Borna and took the throne while he was still in his early 30s. In the Shadow Kingdom, Kull has spent 6 months upon the Valusian throne and faces the first conspiracy against him. So it's like with both Kull and Conan, the first story is when they're in their king phase. The series continued with Kull finding that gaining the crown was easier than securing it. He faces several internal and external challenges throughout the series. The conspiring of his courtiers leaves Kull almost constantly threatened with loss of life and throne. The aging king is ever more aware of the sword of Damocles that he inherited along the crown. The Mirror of Tuzun finds Kull becoming progressively more introspective. The former barbarian has left lost in contemplations of philosophy. The Sword of Damocles. Wasn't that... Damocles. According to the story, Damocles was flattering his king, Dionysus, claiming that Dionysus was truly fortunate as a great man of power and authority without peer surrounding, offered to switch places with Damocles for one day so that Damocles could taste the fortune firsthand. Damocles eagerly accepted the proposal, sat on the throne, but Dionysus, who made many enemies during his reign, arranged that a sword should hang above the throne, held at the pommel only by a single hair of a horse's tail to evoke a sense of what it's like to be king. Though having much fortune, always having to watch in anxiety against danger that might try to overtake him, whether it is a jealous advisor or servant, a slaughterous rumor, an enemy kingdom. Damocles finally begged the king for permission to depart because he no longer wanted to be so fortunate, realizing that while he had everything he could ever want at his feet, it could not affect what was above his crown. Okay, so basically the Sword of Damocles is kind of an allegory for understanding the weight of being a leader and being a king specifically. Okay. Okay, so characters. Brule. Brule, the Spear Slayer, a pre-cataclysmic Pict and friend to Kull. Despite the animosity between Picts and Atlanteans, Brule is a fast friend and advisor to Kull. 2. First Counselor 2 is a trusted administrator, but also a constant reminder of the tradition-bound laws and customs of Volusia. Canu. Canu! Sometimes Kananu, the Pictish ambassador to Volusia and Wise Man, is responsible for the friendship between Kull and Brule, despite the ancient anonymity between Atlanteans and Picts. Alright, Borna, the last king of Volusia, a cruel and tyrannical despot who was overthrown by Kull and his soldiers. And Thulsa Doom. Kull's mortal enemy is the sorcerer Thulsa Doom. Thulsa Doom is described by Howard in The Cat and the Skull as having a face like a bare white skull in whose eye sockets flamed livid fire. He is seemingly invulnerable, boasting after being trampled by one of Kull's comrades that he feels only slight coldness when being injured and will only pass to some other sphere when his time comes. Okay, so yeah, and like I said, he does appear in the Conan the Barbarian movie, and initially my boyfriend and I thought that the reason why they called him Thulsa Doom, even though he looked a lot more like another Conan villain, Thothamon, or at least he shared more characteristics with Thothamon than Thulsa Doom. The reason they made that change was because this would have been incredibly difficult to... Oh, sorry, I got a text message. It would have been incredibly difficult to recreate Thulsa Doom in the movie, especially back in the 80s, even though they had that weird little snake montage of Thulsa Doom turning into a snake. It would not look good to have him do that the entire movie. Have that skull face for the entire movie. Alright, so those are all the stories. Alright, style. Kull is Conan the Barbarian's direct literary forerunner. Kull's first story, both as a written piece and a published one, The Phoenix on the Sword, is a rewriting of an earlier Kull story, By This Axe I Rule. The Conan version has a completely new backstory, less philosophy, more action, and various supernatural elements. Many passages of both stories still match my mind is messing with me, match word for word. One notable difference between Kull and Conan is their respective attitudes towards women. While Conan is a notable womanizer, that's putting it lightly, finding a new love interest in nearly each of his stories, Kull is repeatedly mentioned as uninterested in having any such attachment. While highly chivalrous and on several occasions helping pairs of star-crossed lovers reach a happy consummation, he is never mentioned as having himself any relationship with a woman. Nor does Kull show any interest in marrying and founding a dynasty, as Conan does in The Hour of the Dragon, and none of Kull's wise advisors ever mentions this issue. So, Kull is the asexual king? At least with Solomon Kane, he was a Puritan, and that's why he wasn't surrounded by lady loves all the time. But with Kull, it's like, why does Kull not have a lady love? So I think I'm starting to pick up on why possibly Howard switched to Conan over Kull, because Kull does seem like he's a little bit more on the drier side, character-wise. And let's be real, Conan the Barbarian is basically a power fantasy, and he's wish fulfillment. And Kull, from what I'm seeing here, he doesn't really strike that wish fulfillment chord, because he's mostly battling other men. Seems to be a lot more political drama, and of course the whole, like, testosterone-fueled stuff of that Conan gets up to, including getting with ladies. Alright, so inspiration. Alright, Patrice Lunette writes in Atlantis Genesis that Howard may have been influenced by the work of Paul L. Anderson and his novellas published in Argosy in the 1920s. Lunette notes Howard's stories echo Anderson's subject, how the Cro-Magnons supplanted the Neanderthals. Also, Lunette found Howard had borrowed some of the names from Anderson. No. Enro of the Tan and Land of the Dying Sun resemble Amra and Tan, the land of the morning sun. The Cro-Magnon Atlantis connection seems to have originated with Lewis Spence, a British folklorist, in his The Problem of Atlantis, 1924, and Atlantis in America, 1925. Oh yeah, there was a group of people who theorized that Atlantis is actually closer to where America is and not, in fact, close to Europe, like we all thought. Works that could have influenced Howard. There is a possibility that Kull's name comes from Old King Kull, who was mentioned in The Search by Edgar Lee Masters, published in Cosmopolitan, a poem Howard had been trying to rediscover. It contains the lines, "The tiger banner and dragon banner flutter around the world," which compared to the Hour of the Dragon, where the lion is Conan's emblem and the dragon that of his enemy, Nemedia, where the tiger is Kull's totem. Okay. I was just thinking that you just take the S off of skull and you got Kull. Alright, so yeah, we got the... He's been adapted in many, many comic books. We got the, film, Conan the Barbarian, main villain is Thulsa Doom. And, fun fact, it's a fan theory that, when Conan goes into the underground, tomb, and he finds all the skeletons there, and he sees the general on his throne, and that's where Conan gets his sword from. A lot of people theorize that that was Kull, but apparently that was just like some random Atlantean general. Alright, so... Alright, Kull, registering trademark by Kull Publishing in 1985. The trademark is now owned by Robert E. Howard Properties. Okay. Okay, so that just about does it for the Wikipedia article. Alright, let's see if there's any difference with fandom. I do like this illustration of Kull here. I think this is for one of the Dark Horse books. It's either Dark Horse or Titan. I think it's Dark Horse. Alright. Kull, also known as King Kull, Kull of Atlantis, and Kull the Conqueror. Fictional character by Robert E. Howard. First pub appearance in Shadow of the Kingdom. Right. Let's see. Hair color black, eye color black. Have any of you ever seen someone with legit black eyes? Because I have never seen someone with black eyes before. It's always like a very dark brown. Alright. Kull is very much like his descendant Conan in many ways. He is a fierce warrior, ruthless and courageous on the battlefield, but not tyrannical or cruel. He has a strong sense of chivalry and virtue. Unlike Conan, Kull is much more philosophical and brooding. He agonizes over decisions that affect the lives of those around him, always looking for the most noble action to take. He is uncomfortable with kingship and prefers the life of a general. So that's basically word for word. Okay. We're in age. Wait a minute. Hold on. Is this a direct copy of the Wikipedia page? Except for this one line. In the Conan the Barbarian story, Shadows of the Skull, it's revealed that Conan is a direct descendant of Kull. But that does beg the question, if Kull never really had a lady love and had no interest in making a dynasty, how could Conan be directly related to Kull? Maybe he did finally give in to temptation at some point. Alright, But yeah, it does look like this is just the, this is just the, that's why. Wiki content recently changed page. Okay, so yeah, this is basically just Wikipedia. Okay, well, I'm not gonna bore you guys by rereading Wikipedia yet again. Because I don't know if you guys find me reading the Wikipedia page interesting. It's just that's the easiest way to get all my points across. Let's look at some of these Kull covers. Ooh, very big monster. Cannot escape your doom, then let me die with sword in hand. Super manly. Okay. Oh yeah, the reason why I started with this pink cover here is because it's my boyfriend's current favorite comic book cover. So yeah, he really likes this cover. And like Conan, he also hates wearing pants. Alright. Another one. I think this is the one you guys are probably going to know the most. Or at least I keep seeing this one all the time whenever someone says or does anything with Kull. Alright. Kull the Conqueror. Ooh, that's actually a pretty nice one. Very ethereal looking. Yeah, lots of tiger imagery. Oh wait, is that Barry Windsor? Yeah, it is. Meow. That is not what I wanted. It's our boy, Barry Windsor. And these must be stills from the movie. All right. I think I like this one the most. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a white girl and I like the kitties. Oh, hey, Tom. Oh, you have this issue? The one with the tigers on it, babe? All right. All right. So we just got through the Wikipedia page, and then the other page that I thought might have some additional information was basically just the Wikipedia page. So that was fun. I wonder if we can look that up real quick before we move on to the videos. Oh, the green one? Ah. All right. Why did Robert E. Howard switch from Kull to Conan? All right. Oh, Kull takes place 1,000 years before Conan. Alright. Kull, what's the connection? Yeah, we got that. So it looks like there's not much of an answer for why he switched from Kull to Conan. I don't know. Maybe he just enjoyed writing Conan more than Kull. It could be as simple as that. Kull is pre-flood and Conan is post-flood. Yeah. That is what I understand it too. Alright, so we are going to Marvelous Videos. They have a little video about Kull, gritty spiritual predecessor. Oh my god, that looks so bad. I didn't mean to start it this soon and stop this soon in the movie, but oh my god, that looks awful.
Kids of the new generation will rarely know the magic of reading a storybook while pretending to study or eagerly counting days for the next edition of comic books to arrive. Has the ascendancy of technology bid farewell to the world of reading? I'm sure it has not. Let us salute and pay tribute to the legendary author Robert E. Howard and take you to his world of fiction, which has mesmerized generations of horror fantasy fans for many decades. Today we lift the curtain and reveal the inspiration behind his creation of the legendary character Conan the Barbarian, which is none other than Kull the Conqueror.
Long live Kull!
Why does this look so much cheaper than the Conan movies? I mean, there were... the Conan movies... Well, at least Conan the Barbarian was pretty good. Conan the Destroyer, yeah, you could tell they had some budget cuts on it, but it still looked okay. But why does this one look so cheap?
The first story of Kull appeared on the shelves in the August of 1929, titled The Shadow Kingdom, in Weird Tales magazine, followed by The Mirrors of Tuzun Thun in September of 1929. Before Howard's premature death in 1936, another story on Kull, titled Kings of the Night, appeared in November of 1930. But Kull was not the primary protagonist here. The story's main character was Bran Mac Horn, another heroic character of pulp fiction by Howard. The most surprising fact is that the unpublished rejected tale of Kull, named By This Axe I Rule, was rewritten into the introductory super hit Conan story, The Phoenix of the Sword, which was issued in December 1932 in Weird Tales.
Yeah, it still blows my mind that Conan... I need to do a video one of these days of characters that you didn't know were oops babies, because we know the whole deal with the Shadow, how he was not intended to be a character at all, and now learning that Conan is literally an oops baby from Kull.
The story bears striking resemblances in terms of the plot, while the main differences in the levels were the time and place. The fictional period to which Kull belonged was the Thurian Age, which ended with the Great Cataclysm paving the way for the Hyborian Age, when the Conan stories were framed. Both the adventurous barbarians shouldered the revolutions and became rulers of powerful nations of the world. But while Conan ruled Aquilonia, Kull ascended the throne of Valusia. Despite the analogy of Kull and Conan, Howard evidently characterized them differently. But as rightly said by Douglas Cohen, without question, the most important connection between these two characters is that without Kull of Atlantis, there would never have been that icon known as Conan the Barbarian.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small
That snake scene looks so stupid.
request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
the forgotten creation of Robert E. Howard. The adaptation of Conan the Barbarian into comics offered tremendous success to Marvel Comics in 1970. Hence, the Tales of Kull were also adapted to comics between 1971 and 1985. The artists involved in the drawing of the first series were Mary Severin and her sibling, John Severin. Later in 2006, the copyright of Kull was taken over by none other than the Dark Horse Comics, who went on to publish 3 miniseries on Kull, namely Kull, Kull the Hate Witch, and Kull the Cat in the Skull. Another commendable achievement by Dark Horse Comics is
Yeah, Dark Horse for a short amount of time did a bunch of Robert E. Howard stuff too. They had like 3 miniseries of Solomon Kane, they did some Conan, but I guess they did Kull too.
Organizing the previous Kull series by Marvel Comics into 2 different collective volumes. The colored comics were categorized into 5 volumes, titled The Chronicles of Kull, while the black and white versions were stored in 2 volumes, called The Savage Sword of Kull. Kull's unpublished and unfinished tales gained popularity in due time, but its creator was not alive to relish it. The unfinished stories of Kull were completed by Lynn Carter, and he also named some of the stories. If the stories are arranged chronologically, then the first story of Kull would be the Exile of Atlantis, and the final story would be Kings of the Night. We will now explore the origin and adventures of Kull, the unsung hero of Atlantis, who is overshadowed by the emergence of Conan the Barbarian.
The Isle of Ice.
Exploring the world and life of Kull. Kull was born in the Tiger Valley of the island nation of Atlantis. A flood destroyed his tribe and valley, leaving him alone in the wild for many years. Later, he was captured and adopted by the Sea Mountain tribe. Once young Kull killed a woman to save her from a tortured death by a mob and was eventually exiled from Atlantis. After being exiled from Atlantis, his destination was the continent of Thuria, but he was captured by the pirates, forcing him to work as a galley slave. After he was released,
Well, we'll get you some Savage Sword of Kull issues when we get to Gem City Comic-Con, because that's in July. And you still have a bunch of comics that you need to read, babe.
he became a fierce pirate spreading terror in the sea. His life as a pirate was also short-lived, as he lost his ship in a battle in the sea. But he did manage to survive and reach the kingdom of Valusia. However, he was imprisoned in Valusia, and in order to save himself from execution, he accepted to serve as a gladiator. Soon, he gained popularity as a powerful force and as a fierce combatant, and was freed again. Next, he was appointed as a mercenary in the Royal Army of Valusia. With his effective combat skills, Kull was soon promoted as a general command in the mercenary forces by King Borna. But the despotism and brutality of King Borna led to a civil war where Kull killed Borna and ascended the throne of Valusia. Soon after ascending the throne, his first enemy was the Skull of Silence, a supernatural being defeated and expelled by Kull. Next, he faced the invasion of the Serpent Man cult. Eventually, Kull met Thulsa Doom, who, like Kull, was an enemy.
Ooh, I like how he did Thulsa Doom's outfit there. Very opera ghost-like.
Of the Serpent Man and took him to his kingdom, but Thulsa Doom conspired to conquer the throne, but Kull emerged victorious in the conflict of the monarchy. The closest allies of Kull throughout his reign had been Brule, Tu, and Kanu. Brule, the Spear Slayer, was a
Oh, it's Kanu, not Canoe, like I thought it was. I'm still probably gonna pronounce it Canoe because I find it very funny.
Pictish warrior and remained a friend, philosopher, and guide for Kull for many years after they fought against the Serpent Man together. Tu was a trustworthy minister of Kull's administration and a strict follower of the rules and regulations of Valusia. Kanu was a Pictish emissary who was an eminent advisor of Kull. The greatest foe to Kull during his reign had been Thulsa Doom, whose conspiracies remained and posed constant threats to.
Oh, so he did have a human face once and then became a lich. Okay.
Kull's monarchy. Kull throughout his reign faced innumerable challenges from different neighbors, tribes, and evil characters. Tu also suggested a marriage proposal between Kull and the Atlantean princess Serena, to which Kull agreed after he fell in love with her. Unfortunately, Serena was killed during the wedding ceremony. After Brule returned to his homeland and Tu started advising more minor, Kull became more introspective, and his future remained unknown.
God. Oh, that's so stupid.
It was also meant to be the third film on Conan the Barbarian, but Arnold Schwarzenegger refused to do the movie while Kevin Sorbo declined to play the character of Conan. Thus, the only solution was to rename the main protagonist from Conan to Kull, and the film Kull the Conqueror in 1997 came to existence. And
Oh, that's interesting. So originally, Conan emerged from a reworked Kull story, and then years later, they wanted to do another Conan movie, but they reworked it into a Kull movie. That's an interesting return to form.
was directed by John Nicolela. Now let us go back to the prehistoric age and glance at Kull's sword and sorcery fantasy story. In the kingdom of Valusia, Kull is desperate to earn his place in the prestigious Dragon Legion, but General Taligaro warns him that a barbarian from Atlantis, like Kull, would not be allowed to join the Legion, which was solely comprised of people with noble blood. Suddenly, the news started spreading that the present King Borna had slaughtered his heirs, who were to succeed the throne, being grasped by insanity. But
Okay, he was insane. I was about to say, why the hell would he do that?
the following combat found Kull emerging victorious as he inflicted a mortal injury to Borna. Before succumbing to his injuries, Borna proclaimed Kull as the next king of Valusia, infuriating General Taligaro and the remaining nobles. Eventually, Kull was introduced to his harem, where he met Zoraida. Kull already knew Zoraida as he met her as a fortune teller, and she had correctly predicted his monarchy beforehand. Kull summoned her to his chamber, where she informed him that only a kiss would determine the fate of the kingdom. Kull at first wanted to intimidate her, but later discarded the idea. Enraged, Taligaro and his cousin made a conspiracy to secretly assassinate Kull during his coronation, but they had failed. In the conspiracy against Kull, they were united with the sorcerer Inaros, and they resurrected the sorceress queen of Acheron Empire.
Oh my god.
Actually, the kingdom of Valusia had developed on the ruins of the Acheron Empire, as it was destroyed by god Valka.
Oh my god. This movie looks buck wild, but I do not want to watch it because it looks terrible.
Taligaro and his men helped Akivasha rebuild her empire, and with her magical spell, she enchanted Kull and became his queen in no time. With her magic, she put Kull into a death-like sleep and kept him in the temple while putting the entire blame on Zoraida. The Vulcan priest of the temple was Escalante, who was also Zoraida's brother. He freed Kull, and then they rescued Zoraida as they fled on a ship aided by Juba, Kull's associate. Their only hope to beat and stop Akivasha was to procure the breath of Valka, but it was not an easy task for them, as Akivasha sent General Taligaro to attack them and prevent them from obtaining the breath of Valka. He attacked Kull and his group, and just as Zoraida procured the breath, Taligaro reached and injured Escalante mortally, while Kull was left to die. The evil Taligaro had different intentions. He wanted to kill Akivasha with the aid of Zoraida and ascend the throne of Valusia. Akivasha, in the meantime, transformed into her monstrous form on the day of the eclipse, while Taligaro stood powerless before her. Kull reached Valusia and injured Taligaro and slaughtered Aneros. While confronting Akivasha, Zoraida kissed Kull and passed the breath of Valka to him, while Kull kissed the demonic Akivasha to kill her. Taligaro
Okay. Oh, she killed... Oh, okay. Akivasha. Okay.
took Zoraida as a hostage to protect himself from the furious Kull, but Kull managed to assassinate him in the final combat. Thus, Kull regained his throne and made Zoraida his queen, while he destroyed all of the tablets containing the prevailing laws of Valusia. He abolished slavery and started his reign as a just and able ruler.
All slaves of Valusia are now free.
It is disappointing that this fascinating sword and sorcerer tale grossed only $6.1 million in the US. The film, compared to its time, was really well executed in every single way. Big screen debutant actor Kevin Sorbo, a known face playing the legendary Hercules on the TV show Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, portrayed his character pretty well. The supporting cast like Tia Carrera as Akivasha, Thomas Ian Griffith as General Taligaro, Harvey Vierstein as Juba, and Karina Lombard as Zareta have also been magnificent in their roles. The film was mainly shot in different cities of Slovakia and Croatia for the classic ancient look of the film storyline. Considering the time of the movie, it is pretty entertaining with action, horror, drama, and comedy. It is high time that these forgotten sword and sorcery fantasies are given the honor and the credit they deserve.
By this axe, I rule.
Long live the king!
Why is Kull of Atlantis not so well known? A lot of theories have been put forward regarding the relation between Conan and Kull. Has Conan descended from Kull, or do they have any link anyway? According to the timeline, Kull belongs to the Thurian Age. In the story of the Hyborian Age, Howard described how the Atlanteans escaped to Thuria when their island of Atlantis started to sink. This event has been referred to by Howard as the Cataclysm, but the constant conflict between the Atlanteans and the Picts in Thuria transformed Atlanteans into barbarians within the next 500 years. Another minor cataclysm followed, which again altered the shape of the continent, and 2,000 years following this small cataclysm, it is assumed to be the beginning of the Hyborian Age. Howard never mentioned that Conan was a descendant of Kull, but he stated that the Cimmerians, which Conan belonged to, were distant descendants of the Atlanteans who took refuge in Thuria after the cataclysm.
Okay, that answers my previous question of how the hell is Conan directly related to Kull if Kull never had a lady love and therefore could not provide offspring, but okay.
So there might be a possibility that Conan might be distantly related to Kull, as he was one of the Atlanteans ascending the throne of one of the powerful Thurian kingdoms. But why is then Kull not as popular as Conan? I guess sometimes characters are defined by success and not by abilities. Howard himself stopped writing Kull stories after the success of Conan, as Weird Tales magazine also agreed to publish only 2 Kull stories. Howard was also demotivated to continue the story of Kull the Conqueror. If Kull had been famous as Conan, then probably Conan might not have been created by Howard. Again, the success of Conan is also responsible for Howard fans to look back into his previous work and bring Kull back into the limelight. Del Rey has published a comprehensive volume of stories of Kull, titled Kull, Exile of Atlantis, which would be an interesting and excellent collection for Howard fans. If you remember the scene from Schwarzenegger's starring Conan movie when he tumbled into an ancient tomb and found the skeleton of the dead Atlantean king buried with full armor. He also seemed fascinated with the mighty Atlantean sword in the skeleton's hand. Who do you think the dead Atlantean king must have been? Let us know in the comment section down below.
And if you liked our content,
Alright, like I said, it most likely was not Kull, because the director himself said it was just an Atlantean general, so... It's just like a headcanon theory, but it's a headcanon theory that a lot of fans have just accepted. Alright, so I guess that did answer my previous question, where if Weird Tales wasn't going to publish any more Kull stories, then Howard's like, well, why the hell should I write more Kull stories if you guys just want Conan stories? And I get that. Like, it can be frustrated when you want to keep writing one thing but people seem to want another, so you kind of just have to shift your focus to the other creation. But yeah, that does make sense. Okay, so I know if you're like me and you see the terms like Hyborian Age and pre-cataclysm and blah 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 and are a bit confused, I found this video of the world of Conan the Barbarian, what you need to know. So let's see if this will actually cover everything. Oh yeah, this is from the actual Conan the Barbarian YouTube channel, which I wonder if they're the same people who run the Conan the Barbarian X account too.
Adventures take place. Conan's saga leads him across a tapestry of perilous realms, through deserts where the sands thirst for blood, jungles teeming with unseen death, bloodthirsty pirate-infested coastlines, through frostbitten wastes of icebound tundras, and shadowy castles beset by spider-haunted mystery. All these adventures take place in the Hyborian Age. But what is the Hyborian Age of Conan? Is it connected to the Thurian Age of Kull? Conan is but one hero in Howard's expansive universe. It spans multiple characters, ages, and narratives.
Alright, who do we got? Yeah, Robert E. Howard did a lot of different characters of different genres. They were pirates. It looks like we got Wild Bill Clanton, so we got a cowboy in there. El Brock. I'm recognizing a few of these names because I'm currently reading the Conan the Barbarian Blackstone series. So I recognize El Brock, and doesn't look like the one chick is in this one. Though there is Valeria. Valeria is an original Howard concept.
Narratives from pre-human sagas all the way up to contemporary times. To fully understand Howard's world of Conan, we must begin with the
Didn't realize he had so many creations. Yeah, I mean, I knew, because if you look at some of the Del Rey collections, it's not just Conan and Solomon Kane and Kull. You'll also get like even some of Robert E. Howard's horror stories, where he dabbled into horror a little bit. There's a book about some of his badass lady warriors, where I believe that's where the story of Red Sonja is in. And yeah, he had a whole bunch of characters.
Arthurian Age of Kull and follow the timeline through the Hyborian Age and beyond. Consider this a condensed version of Howard's Hyborian Age essay, so buckle up. We're gonna have a brief 3-second intermission for you to hit that subscribe button. Hey, great job, thanks for subscribing, I really appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. Robert E. Howard's Conan stories unfold not on a distant planet or some fantastical realm, but right here on Earth, in a forgotten era of our planet's history called the Hyborian Age. So in literature, Conan's Hyborian Age is classified as a secondary world. It's pretty cool because this device allows fans to pretend that Conan's adventures might have actually taken place just thousands of years before recorded history. Examples of secondary worlds outside of Howard's Conan include J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth and George R.R. Martin's Westeros. So, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Good company.
Wait, that implies that we live in the same world as Lord of the Rings. Where are all the elves, though?
So the Arthurian Age obviously predates the Hyborian Age of Conan by many millennia. The Arthurian Age presents a vastly different world that was untouched by the great cataclysms that would eventually reshape the landscapes. And the most notable of Howard's characters that lived during this time are Kull the Conqueror, Brule the Spear Slayer, and good old skull-faced Thulsa Doom. So in the heart of the Arthurian Age is Kingdom of Volusia. Now during the time of Kull and Brule, Volusia is already an ancient city, and yet despite being considered decadent and fading, it's still the greatest empire of this time. Kull, a barbarian exile of Atlantis, eventually rises to become the king of Volusia. To the west of Volusia are the barbaric island nations of the Atlanteans, the Picts, and the Lemurians. And you're about to find out that these 3 barbaric island nations are extremely important. We'll get to that. Hang tight. Also hit the subscribe button. So Atlantis is the home of Kull, and despite the popular depictions of Atlantis being an advanced civilization with talking dolphins and floating jet skis, this version of Atlantis is completely the opposite, characterized by its barbaric tribes and constant internal strife. Positioned further west, the Pictish Isles are the ancestral grounds of the Picts and the home of Kull's good old pal Brule the Spear Slayer. By the way, the Atlanteans and the Picts, they don't like each other at all. This ancient feud goes all the way into the Hyborian Age. When the Atlanteans turn into Cimmerians, they're still at war with the Picts. We'll get to that later. Way over here are the pirate-inhabited Lemurian Islands. It's like if you mixed Pirates of the Caribbean with The Shape of Water. These 3 barbaric island nations, extremely important because they go on to establish cultural and military supremacy over the decadent people of the Thurian continent.
Oh my gosh, it's like Rome, where Rome got so decadent and obsessed with their own excess that they hardly paid attention to the fact that the Goths of the German tribes were getting ready to come in and wreck their shit. So yeah, it's basically the Goth barbarians coming in to pillage and ransack Rome. Interesting. I mean, Howard was a very big history buff.
So when Robert E. Howard talks about savagery and barbarism and civilization, this is the idea that you begin at the stage of savagery. This is what we would today call hunter-gatherers. From there you evolve to barbarism, which is the beginnings of subsistence farming and the beginning to live in villages. Then you progress to civilization, where you get more complex societies, stratified social.
I was always wondering what the difference between savagery and barbarism is. So savagery is basically the complete absence of any sort of rules, whereas barbarism, there is rules to it, but it's barbaric. Oh, the Goths were more Romans than the Romans? Oh, I thought... I just hear the Goths... Well, I always heard it attributed to Germans, but okay. Well, I think it was because oh, do you mean that the Goths were more like of the conquering sort than the Romans, babe? I guess by that point in time, the Romans had lost their touch because they just fell into excess. And so the Goths just basically took what the Romans did and used it against them. I guess if that is that what you mean, babe? Oh, you meant the attitude. Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Social hierarchy, agriculture, writing, the arts, things like that. Howard believed that you could move up and down that ladder, that cultures would rise from savagery to barbarism to civilization, but then they could also fall back down again and rise back up. What he's saying is that you have the extremes of
read the Goths were very noble, which led to their demise. You know way more about Roman stuff than I do, babe. Well, most men would know more about Rome than me. I'm gonna have my Roman history lesson on Saturday, aren't I? Though I do like that point that he made there, where Howard believed that these three, you can go up and down between savagery to civilization and even back up and down and land somewhere in barbarism at some point. Because one of the big themes with Conan, and I don't know if it's in Kull too, but with Conan, one of the big themes that he establishes is he is constantly criticizing civilization. He's constantly coming across characters in society, in civilized societies, who are either just as or more barbaric than even he is, and some are just downright savage. And Conan, who is a barbarian, is just going around, and sometimes he is more noble than most of the people he encounters, which is funny when you consider that Conan, yeah, he does live up to his name as the barbarian. And he also has his himbo moments, too.
Of savagery on the one hand and civilization on the other, and that's why a barbarian like Conan can thrive on that threshold between savagery on the one hand, like the Picts, and civilization on the other, like the Aquilonians.
What happened to the Thurian Age? So after the time of Kull and Brule, the Thurian Age ended with a great and terrible cataclysm. This event reshaped the Earth, destroyed all of the empires, and killed the majority of the people alive at that time. So Atlantis and Lemuria were swallowed by the sea, and here's the interesting thing: the Pictish Islands rose up from the sea and formed the mountain peaks of a new mysterious continent off into the west. I don't know, is that an American supercontinent maybe? The survivors, primarily consisting of Atlanteans, Picts, and Lemurians, were driven back to Stone Age conditions. And they slowly, and I mean slowly, laid the foundations for what would later become the Hyborian Age civilizations. Humanity was doomed, for now.
In the stories, Acheron, this sort of ancient empire that was
The sea peoples. Well, there were like fish people in Kull, but Yeah. But I do like the way Howard approaches Atlantis. He approaches it as like it's just another ordinary land that got swallowed up once the cataclysm came. It's not this super futuristic city where it was wonderful and amazing and then boop, ended in the ocean.
Was destroyed several thousand years before the time of Conan. It sort of functions the same way the Roman Empire was to medieval Western Europe. There was a greater Stygian Empire that encompassed the area that's now Shem, as well as Stygia proper. Acheron was an empire steeped in sorcery. It seems to have been heavily influenced by Stygia because they worship Set, just like the Stygians. And ultimately, another wave of Hyborian barbarians swept down from the north and destroyed Acheron and replaced it with some of the Hyborian kingdoms that we know from the Conan stories.
And that leads us to the Hyborian Age. There is a vast amount of time that transpires between the events of the Thurian Age cataclysm and the dawn of the Hyborian Age. It takes a really long time for humanity to climb back up to civilization. We are going to skip over that stuff, but if you want us to explore it further, let us know, and maybe we'll make another video in the future. This is just the crash course. The Thurian
All right, people, go to their YouTube channel and let them know.
Age cataclysm completely reshaped the Earth, forming a new supercontinent. It's basically a combination of Africa, Europe, and Asia, all combined in this giant landmass. The surviving
Oh, so it's Pangea.
Picts lost most of their culture and technology and regressed back to a more primitive state.
So the Picts of the Thurian Age, the time of Kull, are barbarian. Not fully civilized, but they're not savages either, right? They have metal weapons, they are seafaring, and of course Brule the Spear Slayer, the companion and friend of Kull, is a famous example of the Thurian Age Picts. The Picts of the Hyborian Age, after the Cataclysm, have devolved into, quote, savagery, to use Howard's term. They're just a Stone Age people. They have flint weapons. Their religion is really more shamanism. They live in villages and huts in the wilderness. They don't have agriculture, things like that. So they have devolved culturally.
The Atlanteans found a
You would say Europe, Asia, and North Africa? Yeah, probably North Africa, not Lower Africa, yeah.
new home in the gloomy, depressing lands of Samaria. So yes, Conan, the barbarian, his people, the Sumerians, are directly related to the Atlanteans. And that ancient feud, by the way, between the Picts and Atlanteans, that carries over to the Picts and the Sumerians. They still hate each other.
Now, the Atlanteans of the Thurian Age, out of all the barbarian races, they're the least advanced, living in tribes with chieftains. After the Cataclysm, they devolved not just culturally, but physically. They actually devolved back into hominins, back into ape men before
Oh, that's interesting.
or evolving back into humans, and then ultimately they continue to evolve into the Sumerians of the Hyborian Age. They are, once again barbarians. They have metal weapons and low-level farming, and they have chieftains, that sort of thing. The Lemurians in the Thurian Age have evolved from sort of fish people that came out of the sea. By the time of the Hyborian Age, however, after Lemuria sinks and the survivors of Lemuria make it to the mainland, they evolve into full humans, and they become the Hyrcanians of the Hyborian Age, people that would ultimately become some of the Asian cultures of historic times.
Over many
Wait, so in the Robert E. Howard universe, the Asian cultures evolved from fish people? That's okay. Asian people are fish.
millennia as humanity slowly climbed their way back up to civilization.
Oh, one thing I was about to say is something interesting that I noticed while reading the Conan stories. So in the very first Conan story, Phoenix on the Sword, or no, I think he said Akkadians? Well, they are the Akkadians, but they're like the Asian equivalent, is what he said. But in the first Conan story, Phoenix on the Sword, Conan becomes so bored of being king that he decides to take up map making as a hobby, which is very funny to me. But he specifically wants to map out his home in Samaria, and his homeland up there, and other places that have not been fully explored by the civilization he was now ruling. And it kind of implies that he's the first one to like really do that for his culture. And in other stories, whenever he appears, everyone is just really surprised to see him. And it kind of implies that not much is known about the Sumerian culture by the time Conan is just roaming around doing his thing. So yeah, Conan was basically most of the other world's first introduction to a Sumerian, and that's one hell of an introduction.
Numerous realms emerged. Aquilonia, this leading power in the West, is celebrated for its robust commerce and formidable military. Its bountiful markets, grand royal palace, and prosperous streets are ancient enough to conceal long-forgotten catacombs. Renowned for its armored knights, resilient frontiersmen, and skilled archers, Aquilonia's fertile lands, lush forests, and abundant rivers provide an ideal setting for civilization. Stygia. The land of Stygia is almost entirely desert-bound, with its limited fertile land and major cities situated along the banks of the life-giving river Styx. The coils of the Stygian Empire are forged in sorcery and set worship, and great serpents roam the streets at night, claiming what victims they wish. Only foolish outlanders venture onto these streets after dark. Kitai is a vast region with many subcultures united under a single throne, much of it covered by ancient, deadly jungles. Kitaians consider themselves the apex of culture, philosophy, spirituality, and sorcery.
Yeah, Thothamon's land. That's right, babe. And I think we saw a picture of Thothamon, too. Yeah, Thothamon is the serpent-like sorcerer that I think that Thulsa Doom from the Conan the Barbarian movie was fused with. Because obviously he does not look like what he's supposed to look like.
And in many ways, this is true. Sorcery is accepted in Kitai, unlike elsewhere, and much of it was learned from the Yagites, elephant-headed alien gods worshipped millennia ago.
Oh yeah. So, in the story of the Tower of the Elephant, we're talking a lot about Conan, even though this is a Kull episode. I am so sorry. We'll look up a video about Kull recommendations. But in the story of the Tower of the Elephant, for the longest, Conan admits in that story, before he actually gets into the tower, that he has no idea why it's called the Tower of the Elephant, because he's never seen an elephant before. He gets in there, and he sees this creature that has like a human body and an elephant's head, and he's freaking out. And then the creature starts speaking to him like, hey, this is my backstory, and now I'm imprisoned. Can you please just kill me? Keep in mind, that is his first interaction with anything to be even described as an elephant. And he must have been so confused when he saw elephants for real.
Vendia, a country of enormous bounty, is a magnificent civilization of ancient mysticism. This mist-shrouded land of jungle is decorated with tropical wildlife, monkeys that run freely in the streets, and enormous elephants that are harnessed like oxen and adorned with tapestries of jewels. Even the most common of Vendian peasants are wealthy by Hyborian Age standards, a factor contributing to this lush kingdom's nickname, the Ruby of the South. There are so many Hyborian Age kingdoms we don't have time to get into. And
it's interesting how that you can definitely tell which nation is supposed to represent which in the real world equivalent. Because Kital, it's very obvious that that is supposed to be China. And the last one they covered, it's kind of obvious that's supposed to be India. And Stignia, it's obvious that that's supposed to be Egypt.
And as per usual, if you want more, let us know in the comments section. So it's in this Hyborian age that all of Conan's adventures take place.
Okay, so he's probably going to go on more about the Hyborian. Or do you guys want to hear about the collapse of the Hyborian age? Because I will play out the rest of the video if you guys want to hear the full timeline. I'll wait for an answer while I look up Kull of the Conqueror book recommendations. Oh, RJ did a review! That must have been a long time ago. Yeah, 5 years ago. Alright, you want to see the rest of the video? Okay. Alright. Alright. So we'll look at RJ's review after we finish up this video.
From barbarian to king, Conan rose to power to claim the throne of the greatest kingdom of the Hyborian Age, Aquilonia. But Conan's saga, while monumental, was not immune to the passage of time, transitioning him from the realm of mortals to the whispers of legend.
Because we all gotta die.
How does the Hyborian Age end? Centuries after Conan, the Hyborian Age collapsed. An Aquilonian missionary attempting to convert Picts to Mitra worship inadvertently arms them with really important military and technological knowledge. Basically, everything the Picts need to destroy civilization. And that's exactly what they do. The Picts weaponize this information, leading to a barbaric invasion across the Hyborian kingdom.
Oh my gosh. It's the previous invasion all over again. When will we humans learn?
The barbarian races of the north joined in. They were like, "Hey guys, look, it's the collapse of civilization. Come on guys, let's go." This period of time spans like somewhere in the ballpark of about 75 years. The world then descends into chaos, ushering in an apocalyptic era of warfare, reshaping most of the landscapes and erasing most of Hyborian Age civilization. But wait, there's more, because there's also a second cataclysm coming. That's right, you thought that first cataclysm was great? Well, this one's a lesser cataclysm. But there's an ice
I don't know why that made me laugh. The farting lava.
age. This ice age lasts for a vast period of time. Once again, the geographical layout of Earth was drastically altered, forming the continents of our modern world. Survivors of this cataclysm were driven back into a primitive barbaric state. Civilization was lost, and once again, humans were faced with that slow climb back to civilization. What traces of the Hyborian Age exist in contemporary times? The ancient races of the Hyborian Age live on in the cultural DNA of our contemporary era. The Sumerians can be seen in the Gaels. They see Vendahian influence in India. Stygia more or less is like Egypt. Traces of Kitai can be seen in modern-day China and other Asian cultures. Some of the gods from the Hyborian Age also cross over into modern times. You can see the influences of Mitra into Christianity. So that's the idea. Despite the rise and fall of civilizations throughout time, the enduring influence of this bygone era continues to influence the cultures and traditions of today's world. And in that regard, the Hyborian Age of Conan is very much alive today. Howard crafted.
Alright, I think he is about to make his big point there, so we can go ahead and skip over that. So it's almost like the greatest, like the big theme over Howard's works is civilization is way more fragile than we think it is, and all it takes is another cataclysm to just reset everything. I don't know. You guys think we're heading to a new cataclysm? Alright, let's check out the Fourth Age. I've reviewed a few of his books on my blog before, and even did an interview with him. Pretty cool dude, and he usually does a whole bunch of streams with other artists and writers. I was on one of his streams. But anyways, let's check out his review of Kull the Conqueror #1.
Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today, I'm going to do a review of Kull the Conqueror #1 from Marvel of 1971. Now, some of you may be asking, what rhyme or reason are you going to have for these reviews? Which ones are you going to choose?
I'm just now realizing that Kull's outfit here looks a lot like He-Man. Like, he looks a lot like He-Man, except for the blonde hair. Yeah.
Well, I'm just pulling stuff out of my actual collection, my physical collection. Although when I show you pages in the background, I'm going to try to give you digital versions of the pages just because it's a lot more clear. Now, for those of you who follow my channel, you know that I love Conan the Barbarian. At the very least, Conan the Barbarian when he's done well. And this extends to a lot of high-adventure fantasy, probably stemming from the fact that I spend so many hours playing standalone D&D games on my computer. So I like Conan. I certainly like things like Lord of the Rings, but I'm also very interested in isekai and those kinds of stories of today. In the future, I'd love it if I could actually do a high-adventure fantasy kind of comic, although that'll have to wait until the future. Right now,
He actually does have a Conan comic that's about to be out. Let's see if I can get there. It's still in production. It's unfortunately been delayed in production because they had a little bit of an issue with the artists. But let me see if I can find it. It's around. I have backed a lot of books, and I know I have a problem. Okay. Where is it? I believe you are over here. Oh yeah, I did back a couple of Cyberfrog books. That was before EVS decided that he was not into actually fulfilling orders. Alright. So he actually, the fourth age, RJ, he does have a book coming out called Crom the Destroyer. But the campaign has been closed for now. But he does have it. It's coming out eventually, but yeah, it's been delayed a couple of times.
Now the comic that I am working on is a pure superhero adventure. So anyway, Kull is important partly because they're trying to bring him back into the Marvel Comics right now, into the Conan storyline. They're trying to mix the two. That was their intention before everything got shut down, and I take it from what I'm looking at now, all the things that they have planned previously are just going to go ahead, according to Marvel, after everything starts up again. But more about that on Saturday's video. So I wanted to look at this early Marvel comic, fairly early Marvel comic, to see how things were done 10 years before the last one that I reviewed. Although I would give this book a 6, maybe a 7, I'd say the art is probably a 7, although the positioning of the people is not exactly right in some of the pictures. However, it is very detailed, and I really like the detail. But the story is all over the place. I would have to give this a 6 tops for story. Because the thing is, they're trying to take all of the Kull backstory and shove it into one issue of a comic, which really doesn't work very well. Now,
yeah, something like that barely works for a movie, but with a 22-page comic book where you really need to pick and choose what you want to show, yeah, I could see that being messy. By the way, this comic book came out this review came out 5 years ago, so just when you hear him mentioning things about the pandemic or Marvel these days, where he's talking about Marvel from 5 years ago.
Now quickly, just a little backstory, and it's mostly backstory given from the back pages of this comic itself. Kull as a character actually preceded Conan by about 1 to 2 years. I think it was 1929 that the original version of Kull came out. And Robert E. Howard said there were definitely influences from the earlier stories of Edgar Rice Burroughs, from Tarzan and to some extent John Carter, but I'd say you can really see the underlying Tarzan theme of this book. And according to this comic, in the section at the back, Kull was the first story to be referred to as a sword and sorcerer story. Now I'd say take that with a grain of salt because that's printed in the back of a Marvel comic. And many...
Well, and also the term sword and sorcery apparently didn't become a thing until the 1960s. It's not really a term that Robert E. Howard himself came up with.
People would say that Kull is really just the early test version of Conan, what became Conan, although in the story itself and in the history of the world created by Robert E. Howard, Kull just exists 8,000 years before Conan does. So, I should give you a summary of the story. So here goes. The savage Atlantean, known as Kull, rides triumphantly into the city of Valusia. This man, who was raised by tigers, this man who spent his youth as a slave upon a pirate ship, this man who was once the greatest gladiator in the Colosseum of Valusia itself, he has risen from those humble beginnings, climbed through the ranks of the army of Valusia, and now takes his place as the conquering king. He rules only by the strength of his arm, but he will soon find out that there is treachery waiting for him behind every door and down every street of his own city. Alright, so it's a really good premise, but as I said, all of that stuff that I just talked about, it's all pushed into this one book. First we have Kull coming into the city itself as the conqueror, and we have what looks like a subplot, whereas these people are plotting against Kull already, trying to overthrow him, and then we get this flashback to when he was young, and it goes through the fact that he was raised by tigers, then he becomes a slave on a pirate ship, then he becomes a gladiator, then he raises through the ranks of the army, then we get back to where we are currently today, and we learn that the people who are plotting to overthrow Kull actually were the ones who overthrew the last king to allow Kull to become king, and so it's not really a subplot, it's actually part of the main plot, which you don't really get from the beginning. Plus the fact that when you go into these flashbacks, there's a point where Kull doesn't wish to see this woman burned at the stake, so he kills her and then tries to escape from the priests that are trying to kill him. And as they shoot arrows at him, someone protects him, someone throws themselves at the archers, and this is never even touched in the rest of the book. You have no clue what's going on here. They must have just cut
I am speed running through life.
this out completely when they were putting the story together. But this is a really good picture of an early comic, an early Marvel comic anyways. They're still trying out things that just seem really odd. Like the fact that you have half a page of comic and then half a page of advertisements at the bottom, which looks really strange. But I have to say, the one thing that really strikes me about how this book is laid out, and something that is really good about this book, it comes from the art. And it's the fact that all of your characters look like the actual character trait that they're supposed to portray. You have Kull and the rest of the soldiers, and they are extremely fit, wearing usually nothing but a loincloth. And then you have this noble who is trying to overthrow Kull, and of course, he's this bearded, short, little fat guy to symbolize this treacherous little man. You also have Kull's advisor, who is a very old, thin, gray-haired man. You have the servant girl of the king, and she looks like a servant girl of a king, let me tell you. And if you originally
Very voluptuous is what he meant.
read these older comics, these things would just be natural. They would present themselves and they would just be in the background. You knew what was going on. But when you read them today, they're just so refreshing because you don't have any of this nonsense where they're talking about, oh, we got to put in body diversity. And it has nothing to do with the actual character themselves. They can be the leader of a superhero team and look like they're 250 pounds overweight. No, that's fine. You don't have any of that nonsense here. Everybody looks like their character is supposed to be. But besides all of that, there's something about this book that is besides the story that I just want to pull out and talk about for a few minutes. And it's the Stan's soapbox at the end of this book. And I want to read this for you. Because in the letter page, Stan is talking about how he's going out there and he's on television and he's trying to sell these books. And you can see from the ads that they're just getting ads from the smallest places, the smallest people that they can find, trying to keep this thing going. So he's out there trying to sell books. But at the same time, when you listen to Stan's soapbox, why is he doing this? Because A, he's trying to make money, and B, he believes in this medium as a storytelling medium. And he understands its limitations and how that is a challenge to what he's trying to do. So it reads like this.
I'm We'll stop the review right there because RJ is going to go off on his own tirade there. But we were just here for the Kull book. I mean, unless you guys want to hear the rest of what he has to say. Let's see. Do we have any more? All right, we got Michael Vaughn. All right, epic history of Kull the Conqueror. All right. I'm trying to expand to... Wait a minute. So you have to buy or rent the Kull the Conqueror movie, but Solomon Kane is on YouTube for free? That's odd. Okay, how about we do this? Since we're reaching the end of the stream anyway, let's do the end of Kull.
Then the cataclysm rocked the world. Atlantis and Lemuria sank, and the Pictish...
This is Michael K. Vaughn, by the way. Trying to credit.
Islands were heaved up to form the mountain peaks of a new continent. Sections of the Thurian continent vanished under the waves, or sinking, formed great inland lakes and seas. Volcanoes broke forth, and terrific earthquakes shook down the shining cities of the empires. Whole nations were blotted out. That, my friends, is the end of Kull's world, and today we're talking about the end of King Kull. Welcome, my friends, welcome to the stately Vaughn Manor and the Robert E. Howard Show. It is the Robert E. Howard Show once again. It's a day late, but it's here. So, we are talking about the end of King Kull. We've been talking about King Kull for a little while now. Last time we talked about Kull, we were talking about a story called By This Axe I Rule. That is the story that was rejected by Weird Tales. But Robert E. Howard took that story, he transformed it, added a supernatural element, changed the character of Kull into the character of Conan the Cimmerian, and it became the first Conan story, The Phoenix on the Sword, which was a really good story and a great beginning for Conan, for the Conan series. I actually prefer the Conan version of that story by quite a bit, actually. By This Axe I Rule was good, but I think The Phoenix on the Sword was better. I think it was quite a bit better.
I have not read any Kull story, so I would not be able to compare or contrast.
After Robert E. Howard wrote By This Axe I Rule, he was not finished with Kull. He did write a story called Swords of the Purple Kingdom, which was a story that was never published. Again, it was never published during Robert E. Howard's lifetime. It was published years later in the Lancer edition of the Kull stories, I believe. That was the first appearance of Swords of the Purple Kingdom. That is a good story, actually. It has points of real excellence. However, it is very similar in many respects to By This Axe I Rule. And that once again, we have a coup attempt against the king. They're trying to take down the king once again. And again, we have the two lovers who cannot be together for reasons. And only Kull can bring them together.
There wasn't much of a romance subplot in the Conan story, The Phoenix on the Sword. The most you get is his, at the very end, once he takes down everybody, his harem comes in to comfort him while he's getting his wounds stitched up.
So we have those two ideas make their reappearance. We have a tremendous battle where Kull fights a bunch of guys, which feels very similar to the battle that he had in By This Axe I Rule. The difference being that he does get help in the battle in Swords of the Purple Kingdom. It was a good story. It wasn't the best, but it was good. However, apparently it wasn't good enough because, like I said, it was never published. And I don't know whether he ever submitted it at all anywhere, and whether it was rejected or whether he just at this point said, you know what, I'm not even going to bother sending this in, because he had not had great luck with his past few Kull stories. So that is the last story in this volume that is just a Kull story. Kull returns, though, in Kings of the Night. Kings of the Night, which is the last full story in this volume. That is a team-up between King Kull and Bran Mak Morn, the Pictish king. King Kull is transported into the future by magic to help Bran Mak Morn fight the Romans. It is a cool...
That's a buck wild story.
Cool story. In fact, it is a really good story. One of his best, I think. And we finally get to see King Kull as a leader of men in battle. And so that is really cool, that we finally get to see that. And Kull is a strong presence in that story. Although, I have to say, he's kind of a secondary character. It is more of a Bran Mak Morn story than it is a Kull story.
One thing that I haven't, that it doesn't sound like it's brought up in that story, and I had noticed it's not brought up in Battle of the Black Stone either, is all these characters get transported into one realm. They're all from different timelines. How the hell are they understanding each other? Because they all speak different languages. Okay, Solomon Kane can speak French, like he knows multiple languages, and Conan also knows multiple languages. However, they're from completely different times. So how the hell can they all understand each other? Probably just magic. We're going to have to go with the magic answer.
But that is the last appearance of Kull in Robert E. Howard's fiction. And much like Kull's world, which was destroyed by a cataclysm and transformed into the Hyborian Age, the Kull series was transformed and became the Conan series in a way. In that a lot of the things that he was working on in this series were worked out during these stories. And so when he moved on to the Conan stories, you have a much more polished series of stories. You have a series of stories which is much more successful as far as storytelling, and, well, pretty much on every level, the Conan stories, I feel like, are superior to the Kull stories. He worked out a lot about how to write that kind of story. But the Kull stories, in their way, are kind of unique. Kull's world is much more shadowy, it's much darker, it's much more mysterious than the Hyborian Age with all of its dark magic and horrors. There's something mysterious and dreamlike about Kull's world. And Kull as a character was so very different than Conan. A much broodier, a much darker character in a way. A character who was not interested in women at all. I mean, at all. Which is very different than Conan. He didn't seem to have any kind of romantic feelings at all, Kull. He just wasn't interested in that kind of thing. No.
I wonder if it's because Robert E. Howard himself just was not interested in romance. And it was an editorial mandate that Conan needs to bone at least one woman per story.
No romance for Kull. It didn't bode well for his succession. So we don't really know what happened to Kull in Kull's Kingdom after this book. There are no hints in Robert Howard's fiction as to what happened to Kull. and to how he finally ended his days. Did he remain a king? Was he finally taken down? People were always trying to take this guy down. Did Kull's enemies finally succeed? Like I said, there didn't seem to be much chance that he would have an heir, so we don't know. We get this little bit of Kull's life in this volume. As a series of stories, this was an uneven series of stories. The quality varied quite a bit in this volume. So it's markedly different from the Solomon Kane stories that we talked about before, where the quality was much more consistent. The series of stories worked much better as a series of stories than this one does, because this one suffers from having a lot of these stories not being published during his lifetime. He didn't think these stories would ever be published at all, and so you have some oddities. We have characters appearing in these stories with the same names but are clearly different characters. Plot points used over and over and over again, because the stories that they were written in were never published. So he felt like he'd just keep working at them until they finally were published, and they weren't. So it's an uneven reading experience, but despite that, it is fascinating. Some of the stories in this are really, really good. The Shadow Kingdom remains one of Robert E. Howard's greatest stories. The Mirrors of Tuzun Thun is a really, really good story, and very different from a lot of the other stories that Robert E. Howard wrote.
Maybe he was just like, it was just like his fun writing time. Because I sometimes will just write a story and it's never going to see the light of day, but I wrote it just because it's fun. And maybe that's what Kull was to Robert E. Howard.
There are even moments in some of the lesser stories in this volume that are really intriguing and really well written and really interesting. And the character of Kull is always interesting to revisit. Because like I've said before, Kull was a lot more like Robert E. Howard, the man, than Conan ever was. Conan was the guy Robert E. Howard wanted to be. Kull, he was more like the guy that Robert E. Howard actually was. At least...
Aw, that's actually kind of sad to think of.
It seems that way to me. And so that is always interesting to take a look at in reading these stories. And as I said, the end of Kull, the character, is a mystery. We never really know what finally happened to this character. But it's a worthwhile experience. I really enjoyed revisiting the Kull stories once again. And this is an important part of Robert E. Howard's career when he was writing these stories. This time in his career where he was experimenting and working things out and solidifying some of his ideas about how to write this kind of story. And in the process, creating modern sword and sorcery. Reinventing this genre. I don't believe that he actually did create sword and sorcery. I think you have to hand that to Lord Dunsany. But he certainly did refine that kind of story.
Oh yeah, Dunsany. He was an Irish writer, and he has been influential for many writers, including not just Robert E. Howard, but also H.P. Lovecraft. You had some Tolkien. Even Michael Moorcock was influenced by Dunsany too.
And he did transform it into something new. And for that alone, these are valuable stories. Next week, we're going to be talking about another great hero of Robert E. Howard's. A hero we've mentioned quite a bit in talking about Kull. Bran MacMorn. A character who was actually a descendant of Brule the Spear Slayer, a character in the Kull stories. So there's a direct connection between the Kull series and the Bran MacMorn stories.
So Brule fucked and Cole didn't. Alright, so I think this is a good enough time to stop on it. The other reviews didn't seem so much like an overview or book recommendations on where to start. I guess if you wanted to try and start with Kull, read some of the original stories and then jump into the comic books. I'm not sure about that movie. The movie it doesn't look very good. I'll be honest, it does not look good at all. But yeah, thank you guys for voting on this character. If you liked the stream, make sure to give a like, share, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.